Old dudes, right here. Old dude alert. 12:30 a.m. East Coast time. I'm still on San Francisco. I was just out there. I should have just stayed there for this game.
I thought you would. Glad you're back.
Yeah, I'm back. Bobby Manning is out there, of course. We'll hear from Bobby. Celtics take care of business, taking out the Warriors. And a nice little reunion. A lot of love for KPNL. We love to see it. I'm back. I haven't done one of these shows in a while. I don't really remember the rules of basketball, so Sherrod's going to carry us. But the Garden Report begins right now.
Always has to be a shot at somebody.
They're never clean.
They have to run. That's the only shot they have.
They do it for 82 games. We're about to find out.
He already has shown what he's capable of.
Did surprise me. I thought we were going to hang in there.
This makes me think that we do need to be humble.
I actually think you're the only one who deserved that beating. And here we have it. We are back. John Zannis, Sherrod Blakely. Garden Report, kicking it off post All-Star game, the stretch run of the season, second half, final third, however you want to look at it. And the Celtics cooked for most of the game. I'm throwing the end of the game out the window, Sherrod.
So did the Celtics. Apparently, that was bad, and it was so like blatantly obvious what you had to do. Golden State presses, and you folded. I'm not overly concerned about that because again, they had such a just dominant 3 quarters of play that fourth quarter they really did let the foot off the gas, and they knew they could do that. Golden State, I never felt as though control of the game was lost. It just there was some slippage. But this was, and John, we've seen enough of these first games back from the break where it can just be a hot mess. I thought they did what they needed to do, show that you are the superior team and get the win and just keep it moving.
Yeah, and that's what they did. And for a while, it was like the beautiful game, Sherrod. It was really beautiful basketball, the way that they were moving it. They had 29 assists through 3 quarters, and then they went into total shutdown mode. Still finished with 36 assists on the game. But, this is the team that's second to last in assists in this game, right. And the ball was just moving beautifully. Finding open shooters, and those guys were just knocking down shots. It just looked like they were toying with Golden State. And again, I know there's no Steph Curry. He's probably worth half their wins. 29 wins this year they've got. He's worth 15 on his own. And then, there's no Jimmy Butler there, and they're just integrating kind of, KP into things. I actually don't really know what they're doing out there. It's a strange situation. Too bad. You'd love to see, the Warriors are always going to be the Warriors as far as the Celtics are concerned. They're the team that kind of stole one from you when you weren't ready. You've got, not all the same characters, but Draymond's there, Steph is there. And, you want them to put their best out there, and they're not. And it's yet another game this year where the Celtics are, facing a team without 1 or 2 of their stars, but they did what they had to do. Jaylen Brown, triple-double in less than 3 quarters, maybe 2:55 left to go in the third quarter. Vucevic was absurd for this game, just in terms of his plus-minus impact. It came back down, but he was plus 29 after 13 minutes in the first half. That number came way down, obviously, when Golden State cut a 34-point lead down to what was the final score was 11. But this was a blowout. This was a decisive win, and good stuff overall. We'll talk about all of that. Talk about what we like. Talk about the Vuce effect. I know I had my say when I chimed in from the Super Bowl about what are we doing? And see how we like it here. Looking ahead to the rest of the schedule here, what's going to go on, with the seeding and, how positioned are they? Of course, the Jayson Tatum return feels like it's so freaking close, even though he's still pretending it's not. But we'll talk about that. And Jaylen Brown exonerated today with some kind of shady shit coming out of the Beverly Hills, city of Beverly Hills, the Beverly Hills Police Department. We'll get into all of that as well. But of course, before we fully get started, we need to tell you about our pals over at PrizePicks, sponsor over here at the, where is it? Thanks. Thank you, Harrison. Harrison is young, and he's up late. Sherrod's boy, Harrison, he's here. He wouldn't miss a Sherrod show. We got to tell you about our sponsor, of course, our pals over at PrizePicks. after the big game here. There's no more football. And I know you guys are sad, but there's still a lot of cool things you can do with PrizePicks. If you're into this, you like to make your picks, your daily fantasy, head over to PrizePicks right now. If you haven't opened an account, you should do so. Again, if this is what you like, there's no better place to do it. Download that app, code CLNS, get 50 in your lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. And Sherrod, let's get into this. How about this? Why don't you catch me up? What have I missed? I've been gone for a bit. I feel like I've missed quite a bit.
Well, let's see. The Celtics, they got this dude named Vucevic, and he's pretty good. Does not defend. Have we heard this before? Comes to Boston, does some good things. Team wins some games. Have we heard this before? It's literally like him and Anthony Simons had like a little relay deal where, hey, bad defender who can score comes in, you leave, replaced by another guy who can score who can't defend. And we'll see how this plays out. But the biggest thing, John, is that the constant with the Celtics since you've been gone has been Jaylen Brown. He was amazingly awesome all season long. He's been amazingly awesome since the couple games you missed. And that's really where the Celtics team is at. I mean, this is the Jaylen Brown, collection that we're seeing right now with this team. And hopefully, as this ship keeps moving on, Tatum can jump aboard and not disrupt the rhythm and the flow of things. Because as you mentioned, we'll talk more about Tatum later, but I'm just really impressed at how this team has been able to figure out as a collective group how to win no matter what happens. Because as you pointed out earlier, this Golden State team that we saw tonight is not the Golden State team. And they've had a number of games this year where they played teams that were at less than full strength. But we've seen this in the past where that was almost a given that they were going to have a letdown and the game will be much closer than it should be. And instead, they're putting their foot on these teams' necks and just beating the brakes off of them. And it might get a little dicey, but never do they relent control of the game, which tonight was another example of that. And I think Jaylen has had a lot to do with that. I don't think it was a coincidence that when things got a little dicey, Jaylen is at the scorer's table trying to get back into the game. And once that happened, even though he wasn't scoring like he was earlier, his presence was opening things up for his teammates. And so I'm looking forward to this home stretch, John, to see how are they able to finish and lock up one of those top 3 seeds in the East. Because I do believe that they absolutely have to do that if they're going to have a deep playoff run. They got to be a top 3 finish.
Yeah, and I mean, it's looking more and more like it. They got a 2-game lead on New York, who lost to the Pistons tonight, and Cade Cunningham looking a lot like a legitimate MVP candidate right now. And Detroit's going to lock up that one, but Cleveland is finally starting to come up in that conference. They're tied right now with the Knicks for the 3rd overall spot. So nothing is assured. Again, you're assuming, and we're trying to slow roll the Tatum conversation, the Jaylen Brown conversation a little bit, because we want to talk about a little bit about this game first. But it's impossible not to start to think and wonder what's going to happen here as this, as you get closer to what appears to be inevitable here, and that's some sort of Jayson Tatum return in early March, and what that's going to look like, how quickly he can get close to his old self. Get acclimated, and how that's going to look. The one thing I'll say off of that, and also I forgot, somebody put it in the comments. Al Horford had some really interesting comments prior to the game about his why he left Boston. Very interesting. We'll play that because I'm very curious what's going on. Also, someone asking, John, what's going on? New backdrop. Yeah, I'm not home. I'm in New York. We took the kids to New York.
Nice.
Doing New York stuff, Central Park Zoo, go see the Lion King, things like that. That's what we're doing. We're here. We're in New York. They're sleeping in the room right next door right now. And I'm here, podcasting for you guys. But I wanted to do it. I wanted to be here. But we did mention the Al Horford stuff. I will play that as well, because we do have that, him talking about it. I guess I'll ask you here. It's so interesting. Just you look at the tale of two. I'm not going to say tale of two teams, because now Al's been over there. Things haven't really gone the way he had hoped. Kristaps total disaster of a season, and he talked about it beforehand. It's just everything's weird, misses Boston for sure. He's had that illness and the injuries, and just he's never gotten untracked. Everything's kind of just been weird for him. Now they're both in Golden State, but they're like dead on arrival. Porzingis is dead on arrival when he gets there, and it's so bizarre because now you've got Neemish Queta playing really well. You bring in Vucevic, who's basically like your Horford sort of guy. He's not the same guy defensively, but offensively, he's a real good engine for that second unit. Good passer, stretches the floor. I love the Amazon breakdown of halftime of just talking about, they decided to talk about what Vucevic does for the offense. As I mentioned, he was at plus 29 after 13 minutes, and just, his ability to kind of, flare if he needs to and go out to the corner, or if he gets a smaller guy on a pick and roll, and how good he is and how effective he's been as a roller, both as a passing out of that opportunity, or just kind of getting somebody on the low block and going to work there. But you see those two guys, the way they were playing. I mean, even Garza before the trade, and it's so strange that like the biggest story heading into the year is how in the F are these guys going to put a team on the court without any semblance of actual proven NBA big men. And now it's something you don't think about at all.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
and it's weird. It's weird.
It is. I mean, it's to me, I like to call it the referee syndrome, as far as the fact that you're not talking about it means it's working. When referees are doing their job, they're not talking about them. And that's the way the Celtics big man situation has been, I think, for the most part this year. It really hasn't been as much of an Achilles heel, as much of a problem as I think a lot of us thought. And the reason we thought was because the guys that they have had not done anything. Luka Garza's best days as a basketball player were in college. Neemish Queta's best days as a basketball player were in Portugal. And yet now, all of a sudden, that position, I definitely would not consider it a position of strength, but it is by no means a position of weakness. And now that they've been able to add Vooch to the mix, it has the potential to be, one of those wild card / X factor positions for this team going forward, because, the addition of Vooch, and we talked a little bit about this while you're gone, John, was that his addition gives you the ability to, frankly, shore up a clear and definitive weakness against the top tier teams in the East. When you're playing Cleveland, you had nothing that could give you what Mobley does for them. When you play New York, Karl Anthony Towns was going to be a problem for you. And that's, it's not going to be nearly as big a deal now as it would have been if you did not have Vooch. And so, those are the kind of areas, where you're playing a game of whack-a-mole to some extent, that you've now been able to address in a meaningful way.
Yeah. And it's just, extremely strange to think, not only do you not miss the old version of those guys, but you look at who they are now and what they are. Porzingis is a guy who he's the guy who broke down for you last year. He's not the guy who elevated, everyone around him in that first year when they won a championship, even though, we know how that ended with that really freakish, ankle injury there. But I mean, all season long, he was what made it different all year. And he was so important in the chemistry that he and Brown had developed, and his ability to protect the rim and stretch the floor and shoot those 27, 28-foot three-pointers, unbelievable stuff. And, it's the memory of Porzingis that I think you were going to miss rather than what was actual. The reality is, I mean, not only would you be financially a wreck right now, I don't know that you're a better team if you kept those two guys.
I don't think you are.
And you're stunting. I never thought we would say this, because I thought, okay, KP's got to go probably because of the money. If you could find a way to bring back Horford or Luke, you can at least fake it through this year. And when they didn't do that, I really thought I thought they'd given up. I think they thought maybe they did too. I thought that, you heard Brad at the beginning of the year, like, this is where we are, guys. We had the money we had. We offered what we could. We brought in whatever. We're going to do our best to be competitive. I never think that they saw both Queta's development, trading for, Vucevic or, a player of his caliber in the back half, and this just not being an issue for them at all. I'm amazed we don't miss these guys at all.
Yeah.
Would you benefit from Al? I guess, but
See, I'm not, and that's to me, I think that's why what they've done is so impressive. Because if you would have asked that question 4 or 5 months ago, I'd say absolutely having Al is going to always help you. Yeah. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that having Al Horford on this team, based on where he's at skill wise, would have been a good move. Because you would have felt this, I think, desire to play him, and I'm not sure talent wise he can give you what you need at that position. And that's, to me, it's, again, we always talk about leadership and the intangibles that come with that. Well, they seem to be doing pretty damn okay in that area without him. And the only way you will know that is to not have him. So I think that, if we're being really honest, John, the Celtics got kind of lucky with some of the guys they got. That guys that have turned out to be much better than even they thought they were going to be this early. I mean, if I would have told you that Luka Garza is going to be a guy that could help you win games, you'd be like, that's bullshit. You're clearly looking at him when he was in college. And you're talking about playing against the Iowa States and the teams in the conference play. But he's been one of those guys. And you look at Minot, who's no longer with the guys this year. You look at Kada, excuse me. You go down the line, and it seems everything that Brad has kind of thrown into the mix that was a definite, I don't know how this is going to work out, has actually worked out well for the Celtics. And you touched on, John, just the financial flexibility that these moves have given them now and going forward. That's just icing on the cake at this point, because now you've got a team that's one of the better ones in the conference. Your financial house is in order, and you're positioning yourselves to do some big things in the coming years, and basically kind of have almost like a restart without having to start over.
Yeah. It's, again, a lot of us, myself included, are going to eat a lot of, our takes earlier in the year in terms of just who we thought this team would be. I'm still going to contend that the Celtics didn't see it either. Right. I think they hoped, but I don't think they knew, what they were going to get. I think they threw a lot of unproven out there, and they said, Joe, do your best. And they crushed it. But there's no way Brad's like, dude, we're fine because I've got Ugo and Minot and Kada and Garza. No chance. I mean,
Jordan Walsh is going to be a starter for us, guys, and we're going to win a bunch of games.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, or exactly. Shireman's going to start the year in the doghouse, but he's going to start, and it's interesting that the tinkering is unbelievable. And it is interesting now, just everything that's happened with the shift since the trade. Joe's preferred lineup here, it feels like this is what he likes. And it feels like when Tatum comes in, he just bumps most likely Shireman, I'm guessing, but it wouldn't shock me if it was Hauser, if he thought he liked something out of Shireman in that starting lineup, throughout, but he wants to be a little bit bigger there, across the board, if not to play double big, to have a little bit more length and a little bit more defensive versatility than the 2-guard lineups that he was forced to play before when he was starting Pritchard with Derek White. And so this is also the other reason, Sherrod, I'm not like, it sounds silly to say, how's Tatum going to be integrated into the offense? Positionally, I don't think it's going to be an issue. It's really more going to be style, and how that's going to work there. But it feels like they've kind of settled into what they're doing. The reason I don't think it's going to be an issue is because Joe's not an issue. It sounds silly to say like you're going to bring back your best player and a top 10 NBA player and it be an issue, but really more the trickle down effect, who benefits and who gets hurt from it. That's going to be interesting to see, but Joe's pulled all the right strings all year long. I can't see it taking very long. It'll just be a matter of Tatum figuring out what he can and can't do. But Joe, his rotations have been terrific, and the way that he's utilized his players and the combinations of players that he's used all season long. I'm kind of interested to see how he's going to play it, what that second unit's going to look like, who's staying on the floor, who Tatum's going to be on the floor with. I think It's the story. It's the only story at this point. You know who they are. They're finishing as a top 4 seed. They're making the playoffs. What's it going to look like when Tatum comes back? How's he going to be used? How quickly does he ramp up to full steam? Is he going to be the alpha again? Is he going to be deferential? Is he going to take a back seat? I don't know. I mean, is it just going to be business as usual? He just slots in and he's just Tatum again and just roll the ball out there and play. I don't know, but it's clearly the story at this point.
It is, and the thing that you touched on, John, that I think most of us, I think, who've been watching this team all season long are going to be looking for is what changes are we going to see in style of play? Because the way that they play now, they play with a better pace for the most part. But the one thing that hasn't changed a ton is they're not a high assist team. So they're still
second to last in the NBA.
Yeah, exactly. So there's still remnant. I mean, and typically teams that don't have high assists are typically teams that play a lot of iso ball, which is Tatum's thing. But this team doesn't really play as much iso ball as they used to. So I think figuring that balance out is how much Tatum of the past in terms of his style of play are they going to embrace, and how much of the style of play that is current that they use will Tatum embrace. I think there will be a little bit of a kind of it'll have a round peg in a square hole vibe, I think, early on that they're going to have to smooth out. But if I'm Joe, I'm probably looking to pair him up with the guys that he has played the most with, having him on the floor with Pritchard, Hauser, not exclusively, but certainly a large chunk of the time that he plays, just to reacclimate himself to playing with some familiar guys and working the other guys as well, obviously. But it's a great problem to have. If you're Joe Mazzulla, it's a great problem to have.
Everything's a little weird in terms of this team and the assist total.
Yeah.
The last time they finished top 10 in the league in assists was 22-23, which was a down year. Joe Mazzulla's first year, but they were 7th team overall in assists. They've been a middle of the pack team. Even that championship team, you would have thought, oh, they shared the ball really well and they played good team basketball. No, they were 14th. The year after that, 16th. This year, with Tatum goes out, you would have assumed there'd be more ball movement. They're 29th in the league in assists, which is just so baffling to me. And I think a lot of that honestly comes down to is obviously tons of Jaylen, but tons of Pritchard as well. Yeah. And the fact that they've been effective ISO scorers is why that number is not hurting you. I think because Pritchard's been one of the more effective ISO scorers in the league, but both of those guys, and Simons when he was in there too, both of those guys, they dribbled the air out of the ball to get their shots off, and I think that's kind of what you had. And the removal of Simons from that and the kicking of Pritchard to the bench now creates less of that. Because you've just got Jaylen doing it with Unit 1, Pritchard doing it with Unit 2. Obviously, there's going to be crossover there, but you're not going to have multiple guys in there who, give me the ball and get out of my way, and I'm just going to, set guys up and make my moves. Again, they've been really effective at it, but I do think that might have helped because, again, the ball movement today, was as good as I remember it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing about this team. Even though they are among the league's worst in terms of assists, you don't really feel this is a selfish team in that regard.
No,
they still swing the ball enough to where at least you feel as though guys are touching the ball. It doesn't feel as if you basically, they inbound the ball, they throw a pass, they get it to Jaylen, and the ball never leaves his hands. There's not a ton of that with this team, and I'm curious to see how they're going to incorporate Tatum back into the mix because when you think about Tatum, if you close your eyes and think about Tatum, chances are you see a guy in ISO because that's kind of what he does. That's what makes him such a special talent. But I think, again, there's going to be a reacclimation process for both him and the Celtics to figure out how is this going to work with him still being who he is, but at the same time embracing the fact that this is not the same kind of team that he's used to playing with.
Yeah, it's again, we'll get into it a little bit more, and I'm curious Bobby's take here as well. Bobby's Mr. Bobby wants to put everybody on the bench. He wanted Kristaps to be on the bench. He wanted Holiday to be on the bench. He wanted Rob once upon a time to be on the bench.
Everyone except Luke Cornett. Everyone except Luke Cornett.
Everyone who should obviously be starting, Bobby wants on the bench, and not surprising, he wants Tatum to come off the bench. So we're going to get Bobby's take there as well. Also going to talk about Jaylen Brown and some drama that continued on from the Beverly Hills shutting down the party situation. And honestly, I'm kind of glad it went this way because whatever, we'll get into it in a little bit. If you guys missed it, we'll cover all of that ground. Before we do, and again, just updating you, we'll hear from Bobby Manning out in San Francisco. Joe Mazzulla just wrapped up at the podium. We'll also hear from Joe once those guys send that in on tonight's game. Joe, I liked it. It kind of tightened up the do a little bit. He looked sleek, streamlined. You get a little trim there, Mazzulla. It looked like
nice.
He looked sleek. I liked Joe's look today. Also cracked me up, Joe laughing when he challenged the challenge and then burst into laughter over that. It's almost like he just wanted to see if he could do it. And that was funny too. But as we said, just a quick shout out once again, reminder for our friends over at PrizePicks. And again, shoot your shot with PrizePicks, get 50 instantly in your lineups when you play $5. You see it, download that app, code CLNS 50 when you play 5. Don't miss your chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports. And again, I know some of you are sad there's no football, but there's so many other opportunities to get in on the action here with PrizePicks. And again, you know it by now. It's 2 to 6 player stat projections. You can stack players, or you can stack projections on players. You can switch sports. You should know this by now, but if you don't have to just go all on one game, which I like to, because it hurts my brain to jump around too much. I kind of like to lock it in, or certainly with football, or like the 1 o'clocks or the 4 o'clocks. But even with basketball, I like to just kind of focus in on one game. But you can mix and match. You can do whatever you want. There's a lot of cool different promos on the sites. You get free squares all the time. You insert those into your lineups. Much easier to cash in. Other options, you can cash out early if you're feeling good about your picks, but you're worried you don't want to see it all the way through. There's injury reboots and lots of other cool stuff. Freaky Friday, Taco Tuesday, you name it. Get in there, get in on the action. Once again, download the app, code CLNS. You see it right there. Play 5, get 50 instantly. Go claim your $50 bonus now. Code CLNS once you download the app. PrizePicks, it is good to be right. Let's get into this, Sherrod, because the Jaylen Brown situation was interesting. There's a lot of interesting things that happened over All-Star Weekend. There was, the news of, the Tatum documentary, and then the flex out game, going to NBC, and the speculation running rampant that here it comes. And I think that, yes, there's something going on here for sure, but we'll get into that in a little bit. I also think it's just hilarious that I'll get into Tatum later, but the Brown stuff kind of happened. Everyone was like, and you just had a total he said situation. Right. The Beverly Hills Police Department or city officials are claiming something about a permit that they didn't have to throw some 741, an event that wasn't really an event per se, not something that would have necessarily required a permit, but it gets shut down. Brown loses tons of money, embarrassed, all of this happens. And, Beverly Hills, Police Department and city officials are claiming that there is they didn't have a permit. We had to shut it down. And today they ate shit on that. And they basically just came out and said, we lied. We were mistaken. No, you lied. But in the weirdest form of apology, and here's what happened here. Here the statement, and again, this is a sorry not sorry situation. The city's previous statement about the weekend event at the Troutdale home was inaccurate. That another way to say is inaccurate is we lied. We lied. We made something up. And on behalf of the city, I would like to apologize to Jaylen Brown. The Gennard family said, city manager Nancy Hunt Coffey. Anyway, the city has a responsibility here, and here's where it gets weird. The city has a responsibility to its residents and neighborhoods to ensure adherence to established regulations or events held at private residencies. These are designed to support the safety and welfare of the neighbors and attendees. City staff observed circumstances that are believed to be city code violations, and for that reason alone, the event was ended. And I gotta say, Sherrod, this is some bullshit here. I'll put it up one more time. They observed circumstances that are believed to be violations.
The word is the key word in that.
Observe circumstances believed to be. They didn't have any hardcore proof of anything. They didn't go in and say, we heard or believed there was a violation. Let's check it out. They just went in and they said, it's over. So Jaylen clapped right back and puts out a statement of his own in part that reads, "We appreciate the correction of the facts. It was shut down. Private gathering can't be lawfully terminated based on assumption alone. But particularly, no official ever entered the residence to observe conditions or verify any alleged violation. This was a private invitation-only gathering at a private home among friends and partners, not a public or commercial event. The music was down after 6, well before the curfew. In advance of the event, we asked Beverly Hills for police detail. They said no." And Brown continues, "No proof of any alleged violation was ever produced to the homeowner, team, legal counsel without observation, documentation, or confirmed violations. Enforcement action based on belief alone raises serious due process concerns. Jaylen Brown Enterprises, Inc. supports lawful compliance." Basically, end of the day, Jaylen saying, I suffered significant financial and reputational harm when this happened. And it's hard to argue this situation. And Brown just rejects the apology. Like, yeah, thank you for at least telling me that you made up the first part, but you still just shut me down for reasons maybe I don't want to say it out loud, but like there's reasons you shut me down right now, and you guys are going to have to reconcile that and then figure out what we're going to do about it, because there's still not a good reason for why this event was shut down.
Right. And I think the way Jaylen has handled this is the way that you intelligently handle when you are dealing with some bullshit. I don't think it was a coincidence that when you go back and you look at just some of Jaylen's earlier posts and comments about this, he talks very broadly about just the financial harm that's been done to him. And then he threw out a number like 300,000 down the drain. So you automatically know that if this goes to some form of litigation, that is called the basement. And so I do believe that there's going to be some kind of out of court settlement that's reached, especially now that they've acknowledged that basically they shut it down for some bullshit. And it's to me, in that apology, I find it curious that there's no mention or reference to this supposed, the fact that apparently they tried to get a permission to do this and they got denied, and there's no mention of that in this apology. And Jaylen made it very clear that was bullshit. That didn't happen. And so it's Beverly Hills. They've got some
has a rep. They have a rep.
It does. And Jaylen knows. He knows that Beverly Hills is in a very, very difficult position to come out of this unscathed. And I think this is not over. I think that there was at least one or two more shoes that are going to fall due to this. And I think it'll be sooner rather than later.
I like that he kept it up. I mean, Jaylen, after they put their tail between their legs and said that they lied about the permit, metaphorically speaking, Jaylen was up 30 at that point, and he's still full court pressing because he came out there and he said, not good enough. And good for him, because again, I think people were curious. I think there might have been speculation. All right, maybe those guys were supposed to get permission, or maybe there's something going on and they pissed somebody off and those guys decided to go in and make an example. And no, none of that. Literally not. There wasn't, well, maybe we could have done it better. You could have done it better. At this point, it just literally seems like there's not any good explanation for why this happened at all.
Right. And the other thing too, John, is Jaylen does this kind of stuff at every single All-Star weekend. I mean, all the way back to when I was at damn NBC Sports Boston, we would go to an All-Star game and Jaylen would have some type of offsite event that he was putting together. And it's always been an above board affair. There's always been some type of intellectual component to it, whether it's talking about tech or talking about social justice related issues. This is what he does, and so for that to be shut down, it's not like Jaylen is throwing no damn party. It doesn't turn into that kind of thing. So this is a bad look for Beverly Hills for sure, but not surprising at all. So
again, I'm glad this is. I'm not glad it happened. I'm glad this is how it turned out, and I'm glad that those guys ate it a little bit, and I'm glad that Jaylen continues to press because he could let it go, but there's still that apology pissed me off. I'm sure it pissed Jaylen off too. But clearly, he was tweeting 8 minutes prior to tip off. He's still sending out tweets he's clearly steaming, and he took it out on the state of California today. He had a triple-double, as we mentioned, with a little over 3 minutes to go in the third quarter. So, pretty gnarly stuff from Jaylen. And, he's got another one against LA. He'll be back in the neighborhood. Let's see what happens in the next game when they take his wait, is it playing the Lakers or the Clippers? I got lost.
No, it's the Lakers.
It's the Lakers. When they got the Lakers coming up next, Bobby will be at that one as well. But Jaylen, as we know, was terrific. Joe Mazzulla talked to reporters after the game. We're going to listen in on Joe right now.
Joe, obviously they made that little comeback in the fourth quarter. What'd you see from the guys that, to be able to settle down and stick in it and hold on to the lead when the Warriors were getting as hot as they were?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you take a look at the Warriors as a team, they play a ton of close games, and a lot of it has to do with just their ability to go on runs and do that. And so, look, at the end of the day, coming off the break, I thought our guys had great attention to detail, had a great purpose to what we did. And in the last 10 and a half minutes, Golden State took it to a different level. And, we were forced to be poised. We were forced to have to make plays. We were forced to have to make shots and get stops. So that's how they play. They do a great job of going on runs. I mean, the run in the fourth will get talked about, but really the run in the first was, just as impactful from their standpoint. And I think the first and the fourth was the best version of what, that team is. And, but we were able to take advantage of it.
And then your guys' second quarter obviously had that big lead there. What went into how well you guys were playing as a team?
Yeah. I mean, they test your defensive discipline every single possession. And so I thought, one of the only ways to defend these guys is with your offense, right? And I think you saw that in the fourth quarter where we just had some live ball turnovers and they were able to get out and transition. And so defending them at the highest level starts with our ability to attack them, and we kept them out of transition with our not as many live ball turnovers in that second quarter. We got great shots and then we were able to get back on defense. And so, I thought for the majority of the game, our defense was disciplined, and they test that. They test your body position, they test your angles, they test your positioning. And, I thought we handled that well.
Joe, since Payton moved back to the bench, he's really raised his play up. And then Nikola has seemingly gotten more and more comfortable as the games have gone on. What have you seen from them as a pairing off the bench that really gives you guys an extra boost when they're on the floor?
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless of if Payton's coming off the bench or not, he just plays at a level. I mean, he just has the ability to impact the game in different ways. And so it doesn't matter if he's where he's at in the rotation, he's going to impact the game on both ends of the floor. Vooch, he's just continuing. Again, it's the balance. Like, this is what we need from you. This is how we can make things easier for you. And so I think you're seeing the relationship on the court just kind of grow, whether, we found him on some duck-ins, we found him on some situations there, and his reads versus coverages, his reads versus different screens are just getting better, and that really impacts him, and it helps other guys as well.
36 assists on 49 field goals against a defense that's basically in the top 10 in points allowed. What did you like, especially about the ball movement, the cutting, and the things that fueled that?
Yeah, so I think 13 turnovers. I think 4 or 5 of them were in the fourth quarter, so 8 through 3 quarters. You have to get a shot up against these guys. You cannot. You got to know your 2-on-1s. You got to make reads. You have to get a shot off. And so I thought for the majority of the game, we managed the game with our ability to execute. Get a shot every possession, find a 2-on-1, have great spacing, great screening. They do a great job of taking advantage of poor spacing, taking advantage of forcing live ball turnovers.
Joe, I saw you had a moment with Ian after the game, that relationship you talked about before the game. What is that moment like to be able to reconnect with a guy like that? And he was talking before the game about reasons bigger than basketball, that he did have to move on from Boston. That understanding you have between you and him, in terms of like decisions he has to make on his own and for his life when he leaves Boston. Like, what was that kind of conversation like?
I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just grateful that I got to coach him, but more grateful, he's obviously, to me, a Hall of Famer, and he's one of the guys when I first got the job that he had my back, and I think that says a lot about who he is as a veteran, and so it was just great to I think one of the biggest things to respect is to compete against somebody, and how you treat that person, and so, we treat him with the utmost respect because of his ability to impact the game on both ends of the floor, and then at the end of the day, you say hi to him and his wife and his kids, and you're just grateful for the relationship that you have, moving forward.
And Ugo ran over the bench after that challenge. It looked like you found that moment pretty funny. What was that moment like where he was reacting to that?
I didn't think we were going to challenge it, but Matt made a great call on wanting to challenge that, and it's always interesting when you see a play reviewed and then you go back and challenge it again. You don't see that a lot. So where a play is reviewed and then you review it from a challenge standpoint. So I thought it was good by the officials to look at it from two different perspectives. They looked at it from the perspective of was there, something where they elbowed Ugo, and then they looked at it from was it an offense or a defense foul. So it was a great call by our staff and by Matt.
Shout out to Matt. There we go.
Triple-double for Jaylen tonight. Only needed 3 quarters to get there. Just what do you see from him from an overall impact standpoint?
Yeah, just had a clear understanding of what the advantage was every time down the floor. We're at our best when he, defends at a high level and takes accountability in his rebounding. I thought his rebounding was great tonight defensively. Offensively, again, this team challenges your ability to make rim reads. It challenges your ability to play 2-on-1. And tonight he just did a great job of finding that, whether it was for himself or for others. I thought the pace and the poise with which he played at was high level. And, you could see it in real time where the game just completely slowed down for him, and he was able to just recognize where the 2-on-1 was every single time. And so he takes a ton of pride in that, and I thought he did a great job tonight.
High bench scoring night for you. What kind of boost are Payton and Vooch giving you in that reserve unit?
Yeah, I mean, regardless if they start or not, they're going to be good for us when they're on the floor. And so, we got to continue to find ways for them to be impactful. But I don't care if it's what they're doing, as long as when they're on the floor they impact it, and they do a great job of that.
All right, that is it for Joe Mazzulla. Let's pull him off the screen here and get back to me and Sherrod. So a couple things from Joe I wanted to talk about. One, Pritchard, again, the impact that he makes, and then the I don't have it. Do I have Pritchard's numbers, Harrison? Maybe.
Boom. There we go.
Yes, but I wanted his 6-man numbers. Anyway, the maybe my thing's not updating. The move here is really interesting, and with what conviction he had made it as soon as Simons was traded. I think a lot of people were surprised by that because it was so interesting. Just the the debate we were having at the beginning of the year. Will it be Pritchard? Should it be Simons? Pritchard was so good off the bench. Why would you put him in the starting lineup? Simons is proven start, blah, 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 blah. And then, it carried through, but Pritchard was clearly outplaying Simons throughout. And Simons just never really found much of a rhythm, on the, with this team and just really finding his role here. He did fine. But Pritchard, Pritchard as a 6th man this year, 22 points per game versus 17 as a starter, 22.5 versus 17. This is coming in. I'm not sure if this includes tonight or not. 6 assists per game, 3.5 field goals versus 2.5. And his splits, 46-35 as a starter and 52-43 coming off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how are we arguing with this at this point? One, Joe recognizing you lose the other guy, but Pritchard and Simons was a Pritchard redundancy. And you lose one, you think that just clears the path for Pritchard to just play all the time and continue to start. And then he just disappears. Like he just goes back to the bench and it's better. I mean, a real like master stroke. And Jaylen, by the way, I'll let you guys know, was a spit and fire in his post-game press conference. And we're going to play that in full coming up in just a little bit. The Pritchard stuff is unbelievable. As a sixth man, you see it on the screen here. 22 points, 6 assists, 3.5, 3.5 3 points. He's been amazing.
Yeah. And if the Celtics, I think, had him coming off the bench for a significant portion of the season, he'd be in a hunt to win it again. There's no doubt about it. And the thing about Pritchard that I think is really important to remember is that, when this team was playing at a championship caliber level, he was coming off your bench. And frankly, that's a great spot to have him because he really does play the role of being your sixth starter. If he's coming off your bench, he's shown that he can be a starter, but he's shown that he can be even more effective and even more impactful and efficient when he's coming off the bench. The thing about Pritchard's game that I've been most pleased with this year is his playmaking. This is a guy we knew could score. We knew he could make shots. But to me, the fact that he is able to get others involved offensively, keeping his turnovers relatively low in the process, that's the evolution of his game that I think gives him the flexibility to be impactful starter or coming off the bench, because he's shown that he's not a one-trick pony anymore. He's not a guy that can just come in there and get you buckets. He's a guy that can come in there and score and get others involved and, frankly, put the defense on their heels a little bit. So kudos to Payton for just stepping his game up this year, no matter what role they've asked him to play.
Yeah, and throughout, he mentioned Al Horford as well. And again, while we're waiting on the Jaylen sound, I did want to put this out there. Al Horford, returned tonight. Didn't have,
it's bad.
Much impact. Hold on one second. Didn't have much impact on the game tonight. But before the game, he had interesting comments. I wanted to play him here just in terms of, normally it's like, why'd you leave? And you get something generic like, well, I enjoyed my time there, but, something. But that wasn't what Al said at all. Here's what he said about why he decided to leave Boston for Golden State.
I went into the decision to join the Warriors ultimately. And, do you see yourself ultimately retiring with the Celtics if it comes down to that?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, but for me, the decision has something, it's something that's deeper than just the basketball, stuff of it, and it's something that at some point I'll share, with people. But for me, it felt like it was the time for me to go elsewhere, and then as far as the end of my career, I don't know. I mean, I always keep that open. It would definitely be a privilege, to do that. But I'm just trying to focus on finishing out this year.
Interesting.
Very interesting. I don't want to speculate because I can't possibly fathom what he's talking about. But there's something about being here that he needed to not have happen anymore. And I thought that was interesting.
That is because again, this is a guy that, when you look at just the way the community embraced him, they loved Al. You look at what his teammates said before, during, and after he left, lots of love. So there clearly, there's some level of disconnect that came. And I don't think it was necessarily a money thing, or maybe it very well have been that he felt that they were significantly undervaluing what he meant to this organization. I mean, go back to when he left for Philly, and that's exactly what happened. They had an offer. Al's camp thought they could get a better offer. They did get a better offer, and they left. I don't know if this was that happening again, but those are some really interesting comments. But I also found interesting was at the very end where, he says that he would not rule out finishing off here. He's keeping it open. I think if things were potentially bad ending, or which would have led to him leaving, I don't think he would have left it open to come back. And so just again, packaging that with some of the Mazzulla comments, I have no idea what the hell Al was talking about there. I'm curious though. At some point he said he's gonna, he'll let us know. I'm curious what that is. Maybe it's something to do with Tatum. I don't know.
Maybe NBC will do a little mini documentary about it, and we'll find out there too. You never know.
You
never know. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. Like I said, we're gonna hear from Jaylen in just a little bit. Let me know when we have that, because I do want to play it. Again, still hopping mad over the Beverly Hills situation there. And Bobby is going to be jumping on the show in a little bit. We're going to talk about that, and also want to talk about Tatum. What was the final line? Let me see here on Al. What did he end up with tonight?
Oh, gosh, I think he had 5 or 6 points. It was not good though. I just remember at one point he was like 2 for 7, 2 for 8 shooting, and I just stopped paying attention to his numbers at that point.
Yeah,
it was not good though. It was definitely not good in terms of the actual numbers, and even the eye test wasn't great. If you watch this game and you're looking at Al out there, he just wasn't very good. So
yeah. 2 of 10. I will say Porzingis in his limited action, and again, they said on the broadcast Kerr was limiting him to 16 minutes. He ended up playing 17. 12 points, 5 of 9. He hit 2 threes. He actually looked all right.
This was what, but you know what, John? Watching him play, this reminds me of what everyone says about Porzingis at the beginning of like, what are your thoughts about him? And they always begin with the same thing: if healthy. This is what happens. And again, he did exactly what KP does. He's going to get the rock. He has the ability to stretch the floor because he's a 7'2", 7'3" guy that can knock down threes. And he can often find himself mismatched with a guy that's several inches shorter than him, and he can score on a block. And that's what he was doing. He had a very Kristaps Porzingis-like game when Kristaps Porzingis is healthy. But that is so few and far between these last couple of years that you just can't rely on him. You can't count on him to be that guy. So he was good though. I enjoy it. And John, for those of us who've had a chance to be around him as a player, you want to see him do well. He really is a good guy. He took the Boston way better than I think anyone would have thought or expected. And you like to see guys like that have success. You like to see them, good things happen to them. And his whole, just his situation the last couple of years has been kind of sad because he's been able to not impact the game the way his talent suggests he can, for reasons that in many, many ways still remain kind of mysterious. So seeing him back on the floor doing some good things, you like to see that stuff. You do.
Yeah. I also do like to see the Draymond Green's line tonight. I know it's like really generic to root against Draymond Green, but it's like, I love the year that, the Golden State down years, the year that Curry was out the whole year, and like how bad they were. And Charles Barkley's famous line about Draymond averaging a single, but like, not only did he not impact the game in any way, and again, my favorite thing is daring him to shoot and then watching him miss every shot. 0 for 7, 0 for 5 from 3. Almost not noticeable. Only played 19 minutes. Was a minus 28 in his 19 minutes. Wow. And just the Draymond Green, with all of his super friends, and Draymond Green without. It's like Aquaman out of water. Like what does he do? Like he doesn't. Without his super friends, there's just not much going on there, for Draymond and the Warriors. And, he's impossible not to hate. So whatever. I wanted to take a little shot there as that as well. As we mentioned earlier, Jaylen Brown, the whole situation here has been, since All-Star Weekend, all the way through today with a retraction. We posted it earlier. City of Beverly Hills saying we were mistaken about a permit, but these guys were still maybe sort of kind of breaking rules, and that's why we broke up the party. And it doesn't sound like they've got much to fall back on here with these claims. And we showed you Jaylen's statement, calling BS on that stuff, and here's Brown after the game, and again, pretty much his entire postgame, if not the entire postgame, is focusing on this incident from All-Star Weekend. Here it is.
The conclusion of, or is this the conclusion of the thing with Beverly Hills, or do you think when you try to push something legally? What will you try to? What's the next move?
To be honest, I'm not really sure. Like, I wasn't trying to stir the pot or nothing. I'm just trying to enjoy my All-Star weekend. You know, first time being a starter. We had a brand activation event. You know, a lot of money was spent on it. Oakley was a great partner of ours. I was just trying to enjoy my time. I wasn't trying to bother nobody, and that got taken away and it got shut down. And on top of that, you know, I feel like, you know, kind of embarrassed me and my brand a little bit, where people were making assumptions saying that we didn't go file the proper permits. We found out that was a lie. They put that in their statement. So why even put that out there in the statement in the first place if it wasn't the truth? And then, you know, they said the house had violations. That was a lie as well. And then even in the apology, they put out that. So when did the lies stop? You know, I just wanted to enjoy my weekend. I wasn't thinking about, you know, trying to get into it with the police department or get into it with Beverly Hills. I've never had an issue with Beverly Hills. It's All-Star weekend at 7 p.m. I just wanted to enjoy myself, and I feel like that got taken away, and I got embarrassed to some degree. And if it happened to me, I'm sure it's happened to a bunch of people in the past. So I look at it like that. It's a bunch of people that probably don't stream, or, you know, it falls on deaf ears, which is unfortunate. So I'm not sure what the conclusion is. I feel like that apology, you know, even in the statement they put out, they included some stuff that wasn't true, even in the apology. So I don't think that apology was acceptable. You know, I lost a lot of money, you know, on certain partners, et cetera. And then people were making assumptions like we didn't go through the proper protocols. So they're just all around just a bad look. Leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I'm extremely offended. My team is offended still. I'm not sure what the conclusion is going to be. All I know is that was some bullshit.
What was your reaction when you saw the apology, and what issues did you have with it specifically?
I saw it on the way to the game. My team sent it to me, and they included in the apology. They said that there was some other violations which would have led. They never entered the premises, so they wouldn't even know. And even some of you guys were there. We weren't in violation of anything. They were just trying to figure out a way to shut it down. It's hard to not say that we weren't being targeted. I wasn't being targeted, or my brand wasn't being targeted. Nobody else seemed to have any issues in Beverly Hills. You know, we weren't, you know, we were lied on in our statement and lied on again. And even in the apology, it was untrue. So I feel like I've been targeted, and there's no other way to really look at it. I don't know for what reason. I was just trying to have a good time in Beverly Hills on All-Star Weekend, but here we are now, a week out, and I still got to answer questions on it.
For those not familiar, like what kind of panels, what kind of discussions, it doesn't sound like it was a turn up by any means.
No, so I mean, a lot of these guys, the media, have been to my events before. Yeah. A lot of it involves the community. A lot of it is positive and talking about, you know, how to, you know, use your platform and bring positivity into the community. So that was an extension of that. It was activation from our brand 741. We had a panel with Bimba Williams, who was a cultural, you know, influencer. We had Andre Iguodala, who's executive director, LaRussell, who's an independent artist, and included myself, and then RDC World with Mark Phillips, who's a streamer. So I had different industries coming together, all just talking about what the future of culture is. I think change doesn't come from one entity in itself. It comes from multiple entities working together and seeing how we can, you know, be disruptive, but also be positive and push things forward. That's what was taking place. You know, outside of that, it was like a watch party. People were watching the dunk contest, three-point contest. Some of you guys were there. It wasn't, you know, I don't think we weren't doing anything that was out of the norm for what goes on All-Star Weekend. I think it's evidence that we were being targeted. And then they put out a half-ass apology that, you know, I'm not accepting.
How were you able to compartmentalize that? And, I mean, you had a triple-double in 27 minutes tonight.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking about the game, and I was pissed. I was still pissed from that. You know, but we came out and just was aggressive and played great basketball. I like the way our team is looking right now. Offensively, we finding our pace, finding our flow. We got some good practices under our belt, so we're starting to find our rhythm. Defensively, we still got some growth to do, but we should have some good tests coming up. So, you know, I'll let my team and stuff like that handle what's next. But in terms of how I feel, I feel offended for sure.
There have been times where you've gone on social media and just expressed how you feel. This is one of those times. You know, a lot of people of your stature don't do that. They'll keep it private, but you have always kind of chosen to not hide your feelings about things. Where does that kind of come from? And Was this like an easy choice to say, I'm not going to hide that this happened. I'm upset about it. I want to.
Yeah, because if it's happened to me, it's probably happened to numerous amount of other people. And from the looks of it, it has. A lot of people have gotten behind. It's gone viral because I think like Beverly Hills, whatever they do there, they've done such things on multiple occasions. So people also felt offended by me feeling offended. So that leads to it. But I wasn't trying to stir the pot. Like, people may seem like I'm complaining or, like I'm just trying to make this into an issue, and it's not. Like, I was just trying to enjoy my All-Star weekend. I don't think it's fair to me or my brand that we were being targeted. The reason why we were in Beverly Hills because the Oakley house was in Beverly Hills, so it was just a brand partnership that we were there for. And they just shut us down and didn't have any questions asked. We prepared for this. We had a bunch of people fly from different parts of the world to come in. We had people that had prepared thoughts and were going to speak, partners that came in that collaborated. So it's just unfortunate, but then for them to come back and be like, oh, we messed it up, like, oh, we assumed based off biased assumptions and whatever the case may be, and we were wrong, but we would have shut y'all down anyway because of violence. It's some bullshit. It's some complete bullshit, and I got to speak for those who've had to deal with that bullshit probably in the past. But, I don't know what to say. Like, I'm extremely offended. Like, my team didn't do nothing wrong. We just was trying to have a good All-Star break, my first time being a starter, and then it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth for sure.
All right, there you have it. We've got Bobby Manning joining the fray here from San Francisco, and Bobby was in there getting that interview, and I forgot because Brown pointed it out there. It wasn't two lies in the initial. It wasn't one lie in the initial statement about the permit for Beverly Hills. It was two, talking about past violations from that house also. So you're painting the owner of the residence as having had multiple issues and infractions. I mean, that it's so callous to me. It's one is a provable lie.
Yeah.
Permit, no permit. Then the second one is also, you've got to add hyperbole to it to be like, these guys are doing this shit all the time, and just assume no one's going to be like, yeah, no, that's never happened. It's so brazen that it's almost shocking. If it wasn't something that, reputationally, and as Brown, put it there. And again, to his credit, he's still being pretty civil about it. But it is a lot of bullshit here, Bobby. You've been there. You were at All-Star Weekend. You've kind of been following this story since
I was at the event
since the beginning, and you're there. You're the reason they broke it up, Bobby.
I know. So I stopped in at the beginning. I wasn't there for the breakup, the police interaction that we saw here, nor was I there for a lot of the afternoon. But what I saw was an event, a networking set up where it's probably 30 people there. At the time I arrived, and I was there early. Jaylen hadn't arrived yet, and I'm sure things picked up as the night went on. But this was by no means a rager or a house party or anything disruptive in a substantive way from what I've seen. Obviously, there was a panel about to begin, as Jaylen has mentioned there. And it does feel like, because, we've seen this situation play out in a bunch of different circumstances, Sherrod, specifically in a neighborhood like this, that someone must have called this in.
Yes.
And directed, whether personal or not, toward Jaylen, this thing getting shut down here. And the police followed in accord, obviously, in a haphazard manner. The video's out there of the exchange, and I thought it was, impressive that Jaylen directly faced off with these people and, made his statements known and his perspective known in that moment and questioned them about why and what was going down. So it was a good look for him, certainly. And obviously he was affirmed about what he told us that night after the All-Star game, is that he said the statement was false that the police department put out. And obviously they came out and admitted as such today. So obviously disappointing for him. And it's good to see that he can also process it. And because he was in the locker room pretty clearly before this game, sounding off about this and reacting to it. And as you heard there, he learned about it on the bus ride over to the game. To still through that frustration and trying to deal with this and probably talking to people in his camp and whatever else he was doing going into this game, to have 23, 15, and 13 and make light work of the Warriors here tonight. It's impressive. And that's something he's talked about a lot, right? Like my off-court initiatives, the work I do in the community, X, Y, and Z is not going to disrupt my play. It's not going to, have any impact there whatsoever. Yeah. He's been pretty adamant about that being the case. And he's shown it this year. I think we've seen him over the past year here more active than ever in his efforts and playing at the highest level of his career at the same time. And it does feel like we're, watching one of the more impressive figures in league history do his thing here as this season continues to progress.
Well, this is, I thought this was I think as textbook example of what Jaylen Brown has been saying he's about as we can find. And that is someone who has the ability to be a difference maker, both on and off the court, and utilizing his platform to bring issues to light that because of his notoriety, because he is a high profile figure, will get attention that otherwise might get ignored or look past. And, to your point, Bobby, I've been to a number of Jaylen Brown's, all-star events like this, and they've been really good. And the one thing that I've often found has been kind of the thread that binds those events is the understanding of utilizing one's platform to bring about discussion points, topics, issues that may not otherwise have that type of an audience. And this was a great example of why there's value in that, why Jaylen Brown tends to associate himself with various influencers and folks who have the ability to, I think, be looking at wherever we're at, not for that particular moment, but what are we doing going forward? Jaylen tends to think a lot in those terms. And I think he was very politically correct for the most part as far as how he's handling it. But I'm fairly confident that between him and his partner, there's going to be some additional litigation coming down.
They're going to get their pound of flesh out of this. Yeah. I also.
Well, it's interesting that they're heading down to LA tomorrow for this next game. So I'm sure the story isn't done.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if there's a report of some type of litigation paperwork being filed tomorrow while he's there. It would not surprise me one bit.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. And again, one of the things I liked is, again, he did keep his cool, but
you can tell he was pissed though.
Called it for what it was, and I thought it was really funny when he's like, I didn't think about the game at all. I was just pissed off. And again, no joke. He tweeted like 8 minutes prior to tip on top of the statement, kind of reiterating what went on there. So, Bobby, we've talked about this a bit. For those who missed it, go over to our YouTube channel, check out the full press conference. We'll have that posted up there. Also, if you want to hear his all-star press conference talking about that as well, that's up on our site also, so you can go check those out right away here. As far as the game, Bobby, I think two things that we hit on earlier, and I want your takes on it. But I'm also going to tell you it's 1:37 on the East Coast. We're not going to go more than 5 or 10 minutes more here, so let's keep it tight. But the two storylines to me, I think, going forward on this one, obviously Jaylen has the triple-double, but he's been doing stuff like that all year, just in terms of elevating his play. But how little the Celtics seem to be missing Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford. And that seems like almost like an unthinkable statement to have made at the beginning of the year, Bobby. If we said they're not going to miss those guys at all, people would have taken your credential away.
I mean, they're now 7 games better than this Warriors team too. And the fact that Al and KP here is sitting side by side in the locker room, like, how did this happen?
It's weird.
It says a lot about the situations at hand. And I don't know if you brought it up earlier, but Al made a vague statement.
Yeah, we played it.
Departed. I didn't understand that fully. Obviously,
any insight at all?
You always think of family in that circumstance, right? I think we assume family.
But nobody knows. Like, nobody has an idea. Yeah.
No, I don't have an idea. I mean, we've discussed for a while where the Celtics were at with their contract situation. And, was there a feasible path for him back to Boston at all? I wonder that. Certainly. I know Brad has said that he wanted Al and Luke back at a price in free agency, and they made an offer there. So he has made his statement about that, if that is what it is about here. But certainly we'll be interested to hear more from Al in the future, because it's the first time he's commented on this. I do believe he said in his opening press conference joining Golden State that the chance to compete was a part of that. So that has certainly gone the other way with Jimmy Butler's injury and everything else that's gone down on the Warriors side this year. And it is just unfathomable, as you said, to see how far head and shoulders above the Celtics are over this Warriors team that had a lot of hype and certainly promise.
It's not just over the Warriors. Season. I'm not looking at it as that they're better than the Warriors who now
just from
happen to have these guys. I'm not looking at it. I don't care about Al's perspective. I don't. I'm sorry. I don't. I don't care at all. You're gone, you're gone. I'm literally talking about it as they might be better off not having those guys than having those guys, which is a crazy sentiment, which is a crazy thing to say.
Yeah, especially because of Kata's play in particular. And I think that was something Al emphasized in a couple different interviews at this point, the level he has risen to. And it has given other guys opportunity that they've cashed in on. Walsh's success this season at times. Ugo getting to play. But one of my big takeaways tonight, John, was Ugo. And just that continued revelation. If those guys, Kristaps, Al, etc. are here, you're not seeing Ugo play a minute this year, among others. So the youth movement's been real. There's also a plug-and-play element that they both acknowledged, obviously, with Joe and how he's coached this team that has allowed them to succeed with numerous different roster parts. But back to your question, the Celtics do seem to have a level of foresight into where these guys' careers are going. With Kristaps, it's trading him, and with Horford, it's only wanting to keep him at a certain price, right? And his play has obviously diminished this year significantly. Maybe that's because of the transition and what he's playing around in Golden State. I think fans would probably want him back this summer if he was willing to come back at a minimum. But
look at how bad it was.
They're off without him.
Look at how bad it was 7 years ago when Al left the first time, and when he was a good bit younger and had a lot left in the tank, and what a dud he was at each of his locations. Obviously didn't work out in Philly, goes to OKC, and they're like, you're just not going to play. It's like Boston's a fountain of youth for him. I wonder if he did come back, whether he would have a little bit left in the tank if he wants to come back on a veteran minimum or something like that. I'm sure the Celtics would welcome him. The other thing, Bobby, I wanted to hit on is the move of Pritchard to the bench has been phenomenal here. And Joe talked about it a couple different times. And again, the stats are, I put them up earlier, significantly better as a sixth man. Obviously, his sample size is smaller because he started most of the year, but everything is better with Pritchard coming off the bench. And again, this is another thing that doesn't make sense. In the same way, it doesn't make sense that you would lose your two best big men and be better and be fine at that position. It doesn't make sense that you had Pritchard and Simons, which were essentially a redundancy, and that you would get rid of one and then move the starter to the bench after doing that. It didn't seem logical, but it's made perfect sense, and it's made them better. I think it's made that second unit better, and it makes me wonder what's going to happen when Tatum returns, what that second unit was. Again, you're looking at the fears for this team: no big men, zero depth. And now it's like, wait a second, everything is totally different. But I think Pritchard in that second unit changes so much for these guys.
Yeah, and Shireman as a starter, too, continues to look solid, which, I mean, who in the universe?
He needs grooming, though, I think. Does. Yeah, a little bit.
He's out there as a rebounder and defender, though, which is what they've asked.
Comb, but
you're talking physical.
He's talking literal grooming.
Actually needs like physical grooming.
I thought you were talking about his game.
No, it's like Baylor, did you forget to comb your? It's like he needs his mom to tell him to comb his hair on the way out the door or something. Physical grooming, but he's been good.
Going for the look that his goal is at this moment. And man, the rebounding, I knew he was a great rebounder, but he has just become a monster, and the confidence is growing. I still don't love the shot and its consistency, but
that first no dip three.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but it's so great to see him carve out success in other areas and become what has effectively been a constant starting role through January and into February.
He's locked right now.
Yeah, and that's been the case with a couple of different guys this season, and it hasn't lasted. We'll see if this one continues here, but they like that lineup. There's lots of shooting. There's lots of playmaking across the board, and then you obviously have your playmaker with the second unit. I know Jimmy was sounding the alarm after the deadline about second unit scoring, but they've mixed and matched with that bench and have gotten a lot of success out of it with a bunch of different groups and a bunch of different players this season. Even Garza coming in the fourth quarter, looks like he's still ready to give them minutes if needed. So they have a lot going for them. The way in which they just continue to pummel opponents that they're above is just shocking to me. And, Kristaps said after the game tonight, too, he thought they were going to be good, but he's surprised by just how good they are this season. I think we all are, even the ones who were most optimistic about this
across
team
the board.
Could have imagined this. What are they? Almost 20 games over 500 now. One of the best teams in the league, period. And they look every bit real in that sense. We'll see just how much they roll through this road trip, John, here. I know the Lakers aren't the greatest test, but you beat them, Denver and Phoenix on a back-to-back, really good teams.
I just hope
they just roll on this road trip. We're talking about something.
I want to see them play the full Denver team, please, you do want to see tests against real teams.
They've had a lot of that this year. Opponents missing their
a ton of them. Even the first time with Denver, there was no Jokic, and come on, let's
that game.
And they lost it.
Despite that,
But let's see it. Let's see what that looks like. Last thing we want to hit on is, again, this is getting a little tiresome, but a report, from Chris Haynes, who's just basically, what am I supposed to say, Jason? All right. I'll say that, and here it is. It's like another Tatum report, and it's just clearly filtering through Tatum. In this case, Haynes didn't even hide it. He's like, he's telling me he's not ready. He's just saying it. But we're still saying that Tatum has multiple hurdles to clear to return to play. And there was a report over the weekend that, it might have been Ramona or ESPN or whatever, that Tatum is still unsure if he's returning to play. Can we stop, Bobby? Can we stop now? He's coming back, and he's probably coming back early March. This isn't a question anymore.
Yeah, so I'll say that I said on Celtics Daily, I don't buy the March 1st stuff
maybe not
picked and outlined and is ready to go, because that just, to me, and maybe they can map it out, right? I don't know how this stuff works, but in my mind, if he was ready for March 1st and they knew that 1,000% right now, he'd be ready now. So I'm not buying it, and I'm not, gonna bash him for the way that this rollout's happening here, because I don't believe that that's the case. I do believe, and this report points toward there being uncertainty over whether he's gonna play still this season. ESPN put that out as well, and there's some mixed messaging going on, certainly, because he and the team continue to hype up this possibility while casting some doubt over it at the same time. So I think what we've said all along is the reality here is that we don't know. And I think 9-10 months puts you in a good position, especially now that he has practiced. And
It's
I would
not
still
the
guess that
time.
he's going to.
It's not the time that he's been rehabbing. It's not the 40 weeks. That's not it. It's just reading the tea leaves now. You're not rolling out a documentary about your recovery if you're not coming back to play. You're not dropping these breadcrumbs. I feel at this point, the return is certain. If the date isn't locked in, that's
it's just
fine.
about when. Yeah, and I still think
there's no ambiguity about his return at this point. I don't think. I don't know why we're still playing this I'm not sure game. He's clearly.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just a matter of when.
Well, I think for Tatum, I think a lot of it comes down to just trying to temper the expectations. If we all were locked in, and I think that's coming from him, because I think he wants to have it both ways.
I think it's about the rollout, but yeah.
Keep the expectations low, even though I know I'm going to probably come back and absolutely slaughter folks. I'm probably in some respects going to be ahead of schedule in terms of my ability because I've lowered the expectations. I wasn't really sure if I was going to come back, even though in the back of my mind, I totally plan to come back this year. You don't work as hard as he has without the goal being to come back this year. And as far as whether he is, absolutely sure and feels great about coming back, there's going to be a level of doubt and uncertainty whenever he comes back, whether it's this year or next year. So to me, that's irrelevant. I think a lot of this just comes down to his camp wanting to temper the expectations for when he does return this year.
Yeah. I don't think that.
But
I don't think that. I think he's still trying to create some sort of suspense with it. So it's a grander re-entry. I do think that it's being at this point maybe like, I want this to be a big deal, and like if everyone knows I'm coming back, it's less of a big deal. So like I do think he wants a little bit of suspense, a little bit of theatricality, all of a sudden just, remember like when KP came back, Bobby, and nobody knew it, and it was like
it was 6 days after that main practice.
Yeah, and it just happened. But like it just happened. Nobody had a clue. And then it was like, oh, he's playing. I think like there's some element of like, I want to make a show of it. And I feel like that's kind of what's happening. And I think because of that, I think it's certain. But if and when it happens, I'm not even saying if anymore. Yeah.
If it is that orchestrated March 1st date with the NBC and the rollout and all that, I'll revisit it. But at this point, I just don't have any information to say that that's the case. And I have to imagine that there's uncertainty unless he's ready right now, which I guess you could be ready right now.
If he is, then he should be playing right now.
Yeah, and I guess you could be ready now and have to fine-tune some things and do some final tests. I know the strength load is a big thing right now, Lloyd said.
So that would be weird. It would be weird if he were ready now and waiting for a specific date. It would be weird if he wasn't ready and played ahead of schedule on a specific date. So I want to believe that those things aren't true. But if all of a sudden he plays on March 1st, there's going to be some head scratching. Like, really?
Think he will?
I don't know. I wouldn't be stunned because here's the point. You mentioned the Porzingis 6 days after the main practice, and a lot of people talking about the timeline. Once you start the 5-on-5s, the clock, and where you are after that and X, Y, and Z. And it feels like he's like 3 weeks out from starting 5-on-5 play to a March 1st deadline, March 1st thing. That doesn't seem super fast if that's where he is in his recovery. And obviously you're checking final boxes. And like, until those are checked, sure, I guess there's some level of uncertainty, but it feels like it's like kind of in line with not only what was said at the beginning of the season, in terms of the optimistic / realistic return to play timetable, which again, I'll just reiterate. I didn't think he was coming back, but I also didn't think they'd be this successful. And I thought that they would punt on his return simply because they'd be some middle of the pack team and it wouldn't really necessarily be worth it. But this is kind of a targeted spot here. March with the playoffs beginning in April and get a few 25 games under your belt and ramp it up. I think it's very much in line. So it wouldn't shock me at all. Yeah. And if it is March 1st, it will be a little bit of, okay. So, this was a thing, huh? Okay.
That was a good point on the timeline after the practice too, because Chiney Ogwumike, who went through an Achilles tear, the former WNBA player, said that after she started 5-on-5, it only took her 2 weeks until she was ready to play.
That's what I mean. It's like it feels like he's there, like it feels like he's right there in terms of the steps, and I know he held that press conference right after to pump the brakes again after the main thing, because I think speculation got a little bit out of control, but also it was like, everyone's just like, well, once this happens, we're starting the clock. And so I think he's on the clock right now. So we'll see.
Everyone's saying he looks good. Ron Harper at, the All-Star break said he looks like Tatum. Jaylen said in these settings that he's looked great. So they're impressed with what they're seeing. And
Ron Harper also looks good, but go ahead.
He does. I mean, look at him out here getting regular minutes at this point, even though everyone's getting signed over him. I know it's all cap machinations, but he must be like, what the hell? These other guys are just getting pulled in.
Did you and Banton share a moment or no?
We did. Yeah, it was great to see him.
That's good. Anyway, we have prattled on long enough, but again, you want to read from Bobby Manning, check out clnsmedia.com. He and Noah, I think, are going to put out some videos here afterwards, which you can catch on our Celtics All Access channel. Noah's going to have You Got Boston coming up with her recap of the game. Bobby's going to probably pump out a Celtics Daily tomorrow. Who knows with what or with whom or about what, but again, make sure you check those podcasts out, and of course, you can always check out Sherrod
I might have
Blakely's.
to go down to Beverly Hills.
Yeah, head back down, find justice. Justice, Bobby. And then Sherrod Blakely with the Big Three podcast. You do not want to miss that as well. I am glad to be back on the Garden Report, not necessarily glad to be up this late. I'm going to have kids crawling on me, waiting me to take them to museums and things like that tomorrow. I'm in New York,
next
Bobby.
game's at 6:30 Eastern. We love it.
I know. That one's much better. We get Jimmy Toscano back for that one as well. Like I said, check out Bobby and Noah's recap of the game coming up over on our Celtics All Access channel. Until now, also thank you to Harrison staying up late with us because Amit is a wuss and he just can't hack it. Can't stay up late.
Way to go, Harrison.
And so thank you, Harrison, for that, and everybody at home for watching. This has been the Garden Report for Bobby Sherrod, John Zannis. We'll see you guys Sunday. Take care.